The year was 1879. The sun blazed over the rolling hills of Zululand as a war unlike any other was about to unfold. The mighty British Empire, armed with rifles, artillery, and the confidence of countless victories, was marching towards what they thought would be an easy conquest. But they were about to face something they had never encountered before, an army that fought not for wealth or empire, but for honor, their land, and their king. Against all odds, the warriors of the Zulu Kingdom, armed with little more than shields, spears, and courage, would deal the British one of the most shocking defeats in colonial history. This is the story of the Battle of Isandlwana, a battle where bravery met arrogance, and where the British learned a brutal lesson: never underestimate the will of a people defending their home. Setting the stage: the Zulu Kingdom and the British Empire. Before we dive into the battle itself, we must understand the forces at play. The Zulu Kingdom, founded by the legendary warrior king Shaka Zulu in the early 19th century, had risen to power through discipline, innovation, and sheer military brilliance. Under Shaka, the Zulu transformed from scattered tribes into a formidable nation, their warriors trained to fight with ruthless efficiency. Shaka introduced revolutionary tactics, such as the short stabbing spear, the Iklwa, designed for brutal close-quarters combat, and the legendary battle formation known as the Horns of the Bull, which would prove decisive against the British. 4 years, the Zulu people lived independently, their sovereignty unquestioned. But in 1879, that was about to change. Across the sea, the British Empire, the most powerful force on earth, saw Zululand as an obstacle to its ambitions in southern Africa. With colonies in Cape Town and Natal, the British sought to dominate the region and bring the Zulu under their control. Leading the charge was Lord Chelmsford, a veteran commander who believed that native African forces, no matter how disciplined, stood no chance against British firepower. With this arrogance, he launched an unprovoked invasion of Zululand, splitting his forces into 3 columns. The center column, the main British army, set up camp beneath a small hill known as Isandlwana, believing themselves safe from any serious attack. What they did not realize, however, was that the Zulu were already preparing for war. The Zulu preparations: war and spiritual strength. In the heart of Zululand, the warriors gathered. The annual First Fruits Festival, a sacred Zulu tradition, was about to take place when news of the British invasion reached the royal court. The celebration turned into a war council. The most skilled Isangomas, Zulu spiritual leaders, performed ancient rituals, preparing protective medicines to shield the warriors from enemy bullets. For 3 days, the Zulu warriors danced, chanted, and made their final preparations. Their king, Setshwayo Compand, gave the order: "We will not provoke war, but if the British cross our land, we will defend it with our lives." And so, the Zulu army moved swiftly, unseen by the British, towards Isandlwana. The British mistake: splitting their forces. On January 22, 1879, as the sun rose over the African plains, the British camp at Isandlwana stirred. Lord Chelmsford, convinced that the Zulu were nowhere nearby, had made a critical mistake. He had split his forces, taking thousands of men on a scouting mission, leaving only 1,500 troops at the camp. This left the British exposed. And the Zulu were ready to strike. The Zulu attack: the Horns of the Bull. From the distance, dark figures began emerging over the ridges, moving swiftly and silently. The Zulu army had arrived, over 20,000 warriors. They had marched for hours, undetected, in perfect discipline, using the landscape as cover. And now, with the British camp within reach, they prepared to execute their deadliest strategy: the Horns of the Bull. This formation had been perfected over generations. The Horns, young, fast warriors, would sweep around both flanks, cutting off any retreat. The chest, the main force, would engage the enemy head-on. The loins, the reserve force, waited behind, ready to reinforce the attack if needed. It was a strategy designed for total annihilation. The slaughter at Isandlwana. The British, seeing the vast army approaching, scrambled to form defensive lines. Their Martini Henry rifles cracked like thunder, cutting down wave after wave of charging Zulus. But the Zulu warriors were relentless. They knew the British rifles were deadly, but they also knew their weakness: reloading time. After every shot, British soldiers had to pause to reload, and in that moment, the Zulu closed the distance. Then, the inevitable happened. The Zulu horns completed their encirclement, surrounding the camp. The British found themselves trapped, running out of ammunition, and overwhelmed by sheer numbers. Panic spread through the ranks as the Zulu warriors rushed in for close combat, slashing with their deadly Iklewa spears, striking with clubs, tearing through red-coated soldiers in a merciless storm of steel and blood. The battle lasted barely an hour. By the time the sun began to set, over 1,300 British troops lay dead, along with their African allies. Only about 100 men managed to escape, and that was only because they fled before the battle truly began. It was the worst defeat ever suffered by the British Empire at the hands of an indigenous force, and it sent shockwaves through London. The legacy of Isandlwana. The news of the disaster at Isandlwana reached Britain like a thunderclap. How could a group of warriors, armed with nothing but spears and shields, have destroyed an army of a global empire? The British, humiliated and furious, launched a massive counterattack in the coming months, eventually defeating the Zulu and annexing their land. But the Battle of Isandlwana would never be forgotten. It stood as a symbol of resistance, of courage, and of the undying will of a people who fought for their land and freedom. Today, the battlefield remains sacred ground, a place where the spirits of those who fought and died still linger, a place that tells a story not just of war, but of honor, sacrifice, and the price of defying an empire. If you found this story as fascinating as we did, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more historical deep dives. What do you think? Should the British have won this battle? Or was this defeat inevitable? Let us know in the comments below. And if you love history, check out our other videos on legendary battles, forgotten warriors, and the stories they don't teach you in school. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.